Okay, everyone, thanks for hopping on the webinar. We'll just get started as other people start joining in, and welcome to the masterclass. And this is the first masterclass of 2022. Very excited to be continuing these. I do these masterclasses so that people who are as excited about this type of investing can learn and grow together and learn about how these investments work and how to get comfortable. Today, we're not going to talk specifically about multifamily syndications or self-storage syndications. Instead, we're going to be zooming out and talking about how to really think about your finances from a macro perspective. And we're not going to be able to touch on absolutely everything. This particular session is focused on sort of various stages of financial freedom. So just letting some people in. So we're going to cover 5 milestones to financial freedom and talk about why it's important to start planning now so that later on down the line, you can actually be in the place that you want to be, and how to quickly figure out your financial numbers for each milestone. So you may have heard the phrase, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so what this session is about figuring out how to actually make a plan so that you can then start getting your ducks in a row to be able to achieve that plan. So first, we always have to get clarity on where it is that we're going. So we've covered the 2 biggest myths that keep people sidelined from investing in these types of deals previously, but just a quick review. One of the biggest myths is that I have no control when you invest in syndications. And this is just a reminder that when you are investing in syndications, there is a tremendous amount of control that you can have before you invest in a deal. And it's important to exercise that control and get in the right deals. And we always want, here at Lux Capital, we always want to make sure that you feel very comfortable about investing in the deals that you're putting your hard-earned money into. And that's one of the key places where you have control. So this webinar is for people who've maybe tried to invest in syndications but got cold feet, or invested in syndications before but maybe realized that you made a mistake, or feel overwhelmed by all the information overload out there. And in this case, we're kind of going to be focusing on that last one, feeling overwhelmed by all of the information out there. When you get clarity on what your goals are and what your plan is, then the feeling of overwhelm can start to kind of shift, and you can get much more focused on where it is that you're putting your attention. So just a brief background on me. I started investing in real estate in 2010, and I worked for institutional equity providers. So I worked basically for large financial institutions in analyzing multifamily investments. And then I decided to strike out on my own, and I built an Airbnb portfolio, which was a very high cash flowing portfolio, which got me to financial independence relatively quickly. And then now I'm focusing on passive investing because I want to be able to buy my time back, and even more than the passive investing portfolio. So fast forward, since I started Lux Capital, we're invested in 37 properties, 1,850 self-storage units. And these numbers have already changed because I didn't put the multifamily in there that we're in now. And we've got over 250 verified investors and over 40% repeat investors, which we're really proud of. So a quick recap of what we've covered so far. You can find these masterclasses on my YouTube channel, and you'll get the links in your emails of access to the replays. And then you'll see all of these other subjects that we've covered so far. And these are we're kind of aimed at providing a primer on syndications right now. And so feel free to go back and look at those. You can listen to them in the car and see, what we've covered so far. Okay, so the path to financial freedom. Let's dive in and get started in the good stuff. So I'm going to skip over. So here we'll do an overview of the 5 stages. financial security, financial vitality, financial independence, financial freedom, and absolute financial freedom. So why is it important to know where you are and where you want to go? A lot of times when I have conversations with investors about what they want, they'll say, well, I want financial freedom. But what exactly does that mean, right? So it's important to break it down and put some numbers to it so that you can actually start to figure out where you are on your path to financial freedom, whatever that may be. And then you can actually celebrate those milestones, because it's really important to celebrate the progress that you have made and where you are in your journey. That's an important part of progress, is being able to kind of know where you are, be content with where you are, and then still be striving for whatever it is that you want. So let's go over what financial security is. So financial security, we're excluding active income here. So what is active income? Active income is income that you get from your job, and active income is income that you get from actively managing a business. And we're excluding that because what if you were to not be able to work tomorrow because you need to take care of an ailing family member, or because you lost your job? So what would make you feel secure? What would make you feel secure is if you have enough liquid assets to cover the expenses on this page for at least 1 year. Okay, so this is kind of a baseline financial security. Rent, mortgage, how much is that per month? And what you can do is I highly encourage you after this webinar to just go ahead and do this exercise and actually get your number. I know it's easy to kind of listen and talk about it, but if you don't actually take the action of putting this into paper and doing the exercise yourself, then you're not going to capture the full benefits of this masterclass. So what is your rent or mortgage payment per month? How much do you spend on food? How much do you spend on utilities? What other household expenses that you have? What are your transportation expenses? What are your insurance expenses? And anything else that's kind of like absolutely critical to your survival, your basic survival, thinking about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So one way to figure this out is to actually go through your credit card statement or your bank statements and actually see what you have spent money on and see what is actually necessary for you to be able to survive and live. We're not counting the extra stuff. We'll get to that in a little bit, because this is about security. How would you feel if you lost your job tomorrow? How would you feel if you found out that, your family member has like late stage cancer and you want to go be with them? So that's financial security. We're not going to include, and there's other buckets of income that you could consider. For example, you could consider your retirement funds as security. We're not going to include, and this is where it gets kind of murky, because a lot of real estate investors will use their retirement funds to invest in real estate. And we're going to take retirement and that's not kind of part of this whole picture that we're looking at right now. Retirement is a separate conversation, which we will definitely cover in a later masterclass. But this is about being able to live the life that you want to live today, or maybe it's in 5 years, or maybe it's in 10 years, not about retirement. Okay. So the next stage is, the next stage is vitality. So this is a similar idea. Excluding active income, you have enough liquid assets to cover your security needs and half to all of the needs that will create vitality in your life. And so I've just listed a few right here: clothing, dining, entertainment, small luxuries, travel. And when you think about vitality, this isn't just about creature comforts or being able to live, being able to indulge. Think about vitality as, what are your values in terms of spending your resources? For me, for example, I value travel. I would much rather spend money on travel than money on fancy clothes. I'll shop at thrift stores. I will do clothing swaps. I don't like to spend a lot of money on clothing unless it's gear, for the outdoors. And that's kind of another thing. But also, I'll still go get used gear. So for me, I really value travel. I have another friend who, prior to COVID, really, really likes the arts and going to see shows and music and live music with friends. And that's a big value for her. And so, what is it that you value? I know a lot of people really like eating out, and really that's how they bond with their partner or their family. And it's just an important part of their budget. So, what are the things that, when you think about this vitality section, it's what's really important for you to kind of live the good life, right? Living well. And again, this is liquid assets to cover your security needs and your vitality needs for 1 year. So figure out that number. And again, you can use your credit card and bank statements as a guide to be like, well, how much am I actually spending right now? And I highly encourage you to go through, start with just 1 month, go through just your last month of expenses and categorize all of your expenses. So you can categorize it into, categories that make sense for you. Maybe it's clothing, entertainment, travel, beauty, etc. And obviously rent and all those other security needs we talked about. So once you do 1 month, then maybe do 2 months, maybe do 3 months, and then you'll start to get faster at it. And then, if you just spend, maybe a couple hours, you'll probably be able to get through all 12 months. So that way you'll get a really good picture of what your current lifestyle is, and you can create that vitality number. And so again, this is really important so that you can just track where it is that you are. Maybe you're already at the point where you have financial vitality. And if so, you should celebrate that. You should realize that that is not something that everybody has. And it's something that, you've achieved in one way or another, and you should celebrate that. Okay, so now we get to the good stuff. So the next phase is financial independence. So this is where the mindset shift really needs to happen, because financial independence is about cash flow. It's about cash flow rather than just having money in the bank or in liquid assets. And what financial independence is, we're defining it here, is your assets generate enough cash flow to cover your current lifestyle without ever having to work again. And, you could probably break down financial independence into like a couple different categories. For example, you could break it down into financial independence, with the security level and then the vitality level. And so when I first started saying that I was financially independent, it was because I have enough cash flow from my Airbnb business to cover my basic expenses. And, that's another thing that, you want to slightly consider, right? Like, how active or how passive is the income that's coming in? For me, running an Airbnb, I like to call that semi-passive income, because it is pretty passive, but it's not entirely passive. It still requires my attention. Even though I'm not cleaning every day, I still need to answer guest emails and stay up on the maintenance at the properties and, make sure things are getting fixed or attended to. And so it's not 100% passive, but it is semi-passive. And I celebrate that because, it meant that I didn't have to go back to working for an employer and sitting at my desk for 40 hours a week or more than that. And so for me, that was a huge, huge milestone. And so, I say here, without ever having to work again. And, I would add the caveat that there's gradations within there. Semi-passive, I think, is a wonderful milestone as well. So let's talk about cash flow versus liquid assets. Why is cash flow so important? Let's take the example of real estate. Oftentimes when people get into real estate, myself included, we start by flipping a house. It's a very kind of easy to understand, like, okay, I'm going to go buy a house, I'm going to make it better, and then I'm going to sell it and I'll have a big chunk of money. And that's definitely great. However, there's some drawbacks to it. It's number one, it's still a job. Maybe you'll make, let's just say you make $20,000 on a flip. Then you can do 5 flips in a year and you make $100,000, but then you've got to pay taxes on that. And then you still have to keep finding deals to flip and finding and actually executing the flips. And it's a job. You can't actually decouple your time from your income. And that's another phrase I just want you to kind of lock into your brain, maybe write it on a piece of paper and keep it above your desk. Decouple your time from your income. Okay. You want income coming in that doesn't require you to have to be doing anything. You want it to kind of magically appear in your bank account. And that was something that I experienced for the first time when I started house hacking, which is when I bought my first house and I rented out rooms to friends. And all of a sudden, money would appear in my bank account on the first of the month. And it was like magic. It was just like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden there's, however many, like several hundred, $600 or $700 from every single person that, 4 or 5 people that were living with me. And that was just like such a wonderful mindset. And then I started doing Airbnb and I was just like, I got addicted to getting cash flow coming into my bank account every single day or once every 2 or 3 days. And it made me want to get more Airbnb units. And so I really focused on growing my cash flow because that's what actually allows you to decouple your time from your income. Does that make sense? Feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. And yes, so this stage, financial independence, it's a big stage. And so, as passive investors, what does that mean? If you're going to be a purely passive investor, which is, a lot of what we talk about on this show, then you might receive an average of 8% of cash flow, or 8% of the capital that you've invested in any given deal. And so on an annual basis. And then of course you're going to get a chunk of appreciation at the end, but you don't necessarily want to count that because you don't know when that chunk of appreciation is going to come. So what you could do is you could say, well, I want to achieve, if your financial vitality number is, let's just say it's like, I don't know, $70,000, just like as an example, then you would say $70,000 and divide that by 8%. And that would be how much money you would want to invest in syndications in order to be financially independent. So let's see, let me just pull up a calculator here. And then I don't have my calculator in my desk for some reason. I think that's like $750,000 or something like that. So if you were to achieve 75, let's just say $750,000 was your magic number times 8%, that equaled your financial vitality number, then that would be a great goal for you, that you want to get $750,000 invested passively. And the great thing that I love about that is that you're not even counting your appreciation, right? Your appreciation is still going to be coming in every time we exit a deal. And so then you're going to be able to reinvest that money and along with the principal that you originally invested and just live. And then your cash flow will be increasing as well along the way. So that's financial independence, is enough assets and cash flow to cover your current lifestyle without ever having to work again. Another thing about this shortcut: increase income, decrease expenses, or both. So one way to get here faster is to decrease your expenses, right? So if maybe you want to downsize in your house, right? Like maybe you have too much house. Maybe you want to get a different car that has a lower car payment, or there's some major categories that can really impact how much money you're spending in life. And those are, statistically speaking, housing is where Americans spend most of their money. And then it goes to transportation after that. So I'm not saying you should just like cut out little expenses, like not go to coffee or restaurants or something, but really look at your expenses and say, where can I make the biggest dent? And this is again where your values really come into play, right? Like I just can't express enough how important it is for you to understand what it is that really matters to you. For me, it really, 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 really mattered to me that I never had to go work for somebody else ever again. And I was willing to give up a lot of other freedoms in order to not have to do that. So I did live with roommates for several years. And I did really cut back. Like I didn't eat out for a few years and I didn't really pay for a lot of entertainment for a few years. And I still have a car that's like a 2003 car. And that's just how I have chosen to live my life, because I am so excited to have my time to myself and to be able to focus on what it is that I want to focus on, like growing my business and teaching other people about financial independence. So that's what really matters to me. Not everyone's going to have the same priorities. I get that. But if you are willing to take a hard look at your finances and decrease some of those big categories like housing and transportation, then you can really shortcut your path to financial independence. Okay, so let's talk about what the next step is: financial freedom. So financial freedom is enough cash flow to cover the lifestyle that you desire without ever having to work again. And so, what's your current lifestyle, but what is it that you really want? Do you want a luxury car? I mean, for me, obviously, I do not want a luxury car, but I might want a second home, or something like that, just because it just depends on, this is where you really need to like figure out what it is that you care about and desire. Is it that you want to be able to travel 4 times a year? How much do you want to be able to spend on those trips? Is it that you want to be able to, go to a fancy gym? Is it that you want to be able to eat out, 4 or 5 times a week? You have to think about what is it that you really want out of life. And this is an important goal. It's an important exercise that actually I did a session on it last year about how to create a vision for your life. And when you're creating a vision for your life, it's really important to engage your emotions and to really dream big and think, well, what is it that I actually really want in this life? And even, you don't have to like stick to it, obviously, forever. It's not like it's written in stone, but you're trying to dream into what is it that you really want in this life? What's going to make you happy? Or is it that you want to be able to send your kids to private school when they're in elementary school and high school? Is it that you want to be able to pay for them to go to a private university? And, these are things that you have to factor into your financial plan. Or is it more important, that whatever it is, people are going to have different values. And it's important to really let yourself go to that place of, what is it that I really, truly want in life? If I just let my brain kind of free itself, and you take the lid off your brain and you say, okay, I'm going to achieve the life that I really want. So don't forget about giving. This is such an important part. It's always important to give back. It's always important to think, like, whether it's your time or your money or your resources, you need to give back. I can't encourage this enough. Like, if you don't develop the muscle of giving earlier on, then it might be harder to do it when you have more money. And so even if it's a small amount, make sure that you're incorporating giving into your financial plan and into your life plan. How do you want to give back? So there's a saying by Brendan Burchard, and it goes like, when he's thinking about evaluating his life, he's going to look back and say, did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? So did I live? Did I have the experiences in life that I really wanted? Did I love? What were my relationships like? And did I grow personally throughout my entire life? And then did I matter? So what did I do to contribute back to the world and make the world and my community a better place? So that's financial freedom. And then there's yet another level, which is absolute freedom. Okay, so absolute freedom is a level beyond financial freedom. And it's really important to actually think about this, because if you never make it, if you never envision it in your mind, it might never happen. And so, for me, I dream about starting a foundation. I dream about being able to allow my resources to give back in a way that lives beyond me, right? And I have different criteria about how I want that foundation to operate, what I want us to invest in, and all that type of lots of different types of things that I feel like that's a legacy that I want to leave. But for you, does absolute freedom mean to you? Some people want to own a plane so that they can take their friends to wherever they want, whenever they want. Some people, there's material stuff, right? That is, money is not the key to happiness. Money doesn't buy happiness, but money can allow us to do things that may be really meaningful to us, like spend more time with our family and friends. I would love to be able to host my friends for a month, in Mexico or something like that, and just feel like, oh yeah, I can just bring everybody together, and that can be my gift to my community. And what is it for you that would mean absolute freedom? So again, don't forget about giving, and make sure you work that into your plan. So what I really want you to do today, if you can get yourself to do it, I want you to actually do this exercise. I want you to actually take an hour, or maybe start with even just doing a back of the envelope type calculation, and start to figure out what are your security needs for you and your family. What is your vitality needs? What are your independence needs, your financial needs, and your absolute freedom? And then, there are going to be a couple things that you're going to need to add in there, like some of the bigger expenses, like, needing a down payment for a house, or needing, a college fund, and things that are kind of like bigger life expenses, and then needing to save for retirement. Those are things that you're going to want to incorporate, just at least table and put in the back of your mind, or just on the side of the pieces of paper, so that, you don't forget about those, right? Like, we have to look at our lives holistically, but we really want to look at, what is it that we need to live the lifestyle that we want and buy our time back. So that is all for this webinar. And yeah, I would love to know if anybody has any questions or thoughts about this session so far.